How do you get a guitarist to stop playing? Put sheet music in front of him. That's an old joke, but it has some truth to it. Lots of guitarists don't know how to read traditional Western music notation. And even among those that do, many are just not very good at it. What guitarists are more often comfortable with is another style of notation known as tablature. Why do guitarists generally suck at reading music? It's because they don't practice it. Why don't they practice it? Because they don't have to. You don't need to know how to read music to play music. The music is not what's on the page. And if you're a working guitarist, reading music is not a prerequisite to most gigs. So in a practical, real-world sense, it's just not needed that much. However, I think that any really serious musician ought to know how to read music. There's a lot of value in it when it comes to growing yourself as a musician, even if you're not likely to use it in a gig. But there's a lot of value to tablature as well, so I thought I'd highlight what I think are some of the pros and cons of each. So first up, traditional Western music notation. Its origins are in the Roman Catholic Church in the Middle Ages, and it's evolved a lot over the last several hundred years since then. It's designed to convey a lot of information. Pitch is indicated by position of notes on the staff. The pitches represented by each line and space are indicated by the clef. The meter is indicated by the time signature. Rhythm is indicated by the shape of each note. The way the notes are beamed help to visualize where the beats are in each measure. Tempo is usually indicated by some expressive word like allegro or adagio, or with a precise metronome marking. Dynamics, or relative volume levels, are indicated with symbols like forte or piano. Articulation style is indicated with various symbols. Expressive text is often indicated under the staff, implying the emotional intent with which you should play a given passage. All great things. It seeks to represent the music on the page. The only thing it needs is human interpretation to come to life. It's also very easy to see harmonic structure and melodic contour at a glance. Look at this. Immediately, I can tell that I'm looking at some sort of triad with a root, third, fifth structure, because that's how it falls on the staff. Look at this. I can see this melody ascends, dances around its high point a little, and comes back down. Without even touching my instrument, I already have a rough idea of what this is going to sound like. In short, traditional Western notation is really good at conveying musical information. What are some of the cons? It's not very good at conveying subtle nuances in rhythmic interpretation, like varying degrees of swing, rubato, which is a kind of pushing and pulling of tempo, or the cool, off-kilter, drunk-sounding Jay Dilla-style beats you find in a lot of modern hip-hop and contemporary jazz. It can also cause hiccups with instruments that can play the same note in multiple ways, such as the guitar. This note can be played in 5 different places on the guitar. It could be the open 1st string, the 5th fret on the 2nd string, the 9th fret on the 3rd string, the 14th fret on the 4th string, or the 19th fret on the 5th string. How do you know which to go for? Guitar music does have conventions to answer this question, but that's a little outside the scope of this video. I'll save it for another time. Next, tablature. Tablature, or tab for short, is not a new invention. It actually dates back several hundred years to music for the lute in Spanish vihuela. By the way, despite popular belief, the lute is not a predecessor to the guitar. It's more of a cousin. The concept of tab hasn't changed much since the early days, although the execution has evolved. At some points, the highest sounding string or course was represented by the bottom line, and sometimes frets were indicated by letters rather than numbers. But the constant is that you have as many lines as you have strings on your instrument, and a number on a line tells you what fret to play on that string. It's pretty simple, and it's super accessible for beginners because it's easy to understand, it doesn't require any musical knowledge, and it tells you very clearly where to put your fingers. It's direct to instrument. However, it has a lot of shortcomings. Rhythmic information is very clunky to incorporate. You can do it, but it just doesn't come across as clearly as in traditional notation, and sometimes leaves some subjectivity. The ASCII notated tab all over websites like ultimateguitar.com are especially lacking in rhythmic information. And write notes. It also doesn't tell you what the notes are. It tells you where they are, and then you deduce what they are after the fact. Whereas with standard notation, you know what the notes are first, and then you have to find them on the guitar. It's like a different order of operations. Now, I am of the opinion that the music takes precedence. It's the most important thing. The guitar is physically really fun to play, and tab reinforces that tactile enjoyment. But musical understanding needs to make its way in to feed your growth as a musician, and traditional notation appeals to that first. It's not the only way to develop musical understanding. but it helps. Standard notation and tab are both great for certain reasons. A truly comprehensive music notation doesn't exist, so a common solution for guitarists is to combine the two on top of each other. This way, all the information you need is there. You just have to make sure you don't completely ignore the top staff. Reading music tends to be intimidating for people, but the concepts behind it are not hard. I can generally cover the basics of reading music with a student in an hour. The only way to get good at it is to do it a lot. And the more you do it, the more you realize just how much musical information it's conveying to you, and how much you can process to inform your interpretation before you even play the notes. And I'm not really pitching a revolutionary idea here. There's a lot of historical precedents for guitarists reading music. I mentioned this guy in my video last week. Mauro Giuliani was a guitarist, cellist, and composer who lived in Vienna in the early 1800s. This is a book of his music. Look at that. That's music written for the guitar, and it's in standard notation. I've got a whole shelf of guitar music in standard notation down there. This one is very difficult to play. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. Not so much of a how-to video today, just some of my own philosophical views. If you enjoyed this, I do a new video on some musical topic of interest every week. So, I will see you next time.